various social media channels like YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Instagram, Spaces, and podcast channels for the benefit of our viewers in different segment of the social media. Today is our 142nd episode, and the topic today is Hindutva Path to Renaissance of Bharat. Our VIRAT Hindustan Sangham, popularly which is known as VHS, and its founder, President Dr. Subramanian Sawmy, has written extensively on this subject with numerous books, especially starting with the book Hindus Under Siege, which was released by Shankaracharya Swamiji, Jayendra Saraswati ji, and the Sar-Sanchalak of RSS, Sudarshan ji. And after that, he has spoken and written numerous other books, and he has walked his talk along with these books. Dr. Sawmy has been responsible for opening of Kailash Mansarovar in Tibet for the benefit of our Hindu pilgrims and led the first batch in 1981 and then again visited it in 2016. He has been in the forefront to save Ram Setu. His writ petition in the Supreme Court led to the day-to-day hearing of the Ram Mandir dispute, which led to the great victory by the judgment of the Supreme Court, and the building of the great Ram Mandir is in progress. On various other Hindu issues like the management of temple should be with the Hindu devotees and not controlled by the government, Dr. Sawmy has led numerous court battles in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Telangana, Uttarakhand, and in the Supreme Court. The order he got from the Supreme Court on the Nataraja temple issue in the Chidambaram town of Tamil Nadu is a path-breaking and landmark judgment, and that government cannot take over Hindu temples, and even if it takes over for financial mismanagement, it has to be returned back after a short period and not kept under government control. This can set the trend for all temples of Hindustan being liberated from government control. Last week, viewership across various channels had crossed 77,000 viewers on the program which we had on the year gone by discussing the economy with Ms. Sushita Dalal and Mr. Debashish Bashu. We thank our viewers for their support. I have to thank my co-host, Professor Arvind Chaturvedi from Delhi, and Mr. Ramesh Swamy for their help, assistance and guidance for this show we put together on every Sunday. I also have to thank our technical team of VHS led by Ashish Shetty, Tejas Navalgol of Pune, Swaminathan from Tamil Nadu, Ishwar Iyer from Navi Mumbai, Rakesh Gadgi from Karnataka, Ajesh Nair from Kerala, and Vishal Mehta from Mumbai for their background support to ensure that we keep our commitments and time with you every Sunday. So with these opening remarks, it is over to Dr. Sawmy to discuss a very important and interesting topic which a lot of people today have told us on the social media they are looking forward to. Over to Dr. Sawmy.
Thank you, Jagdish, and my colleagues, Ramesh and Professor Chaturvedi. In 1947, we had got rid of the British, and it was a struggle for almost 100 years because the British took over India formally with Queen Victoria as the Empress of India in 1857. And by the time the British left India, they had left it in a miserable condition. They had completely bled agriculture by appointing the zamindari system and collecting revenue through them. And there was, not much industry. Those industries were all, like textiles, which was necessary to, be competition to the Europeans who had come in after Manchester. And so we were in a poor country, a country which was never poor for thousands of years up till, say, 1700 AD, suddenly became the poorest in the world. And at that time, to the credit of Mahatma Gandhi, I'll say that he had urged that we should actually not only be worried about improving our economy, but also we must have a cultural change and get rid of all the ossification and the hardening that has taken place over the centuries. For instance, untouchability was one example. And there were others also who were of this view and they supported it. But unfortunately, after independence, Jawaharlal Nehru was fascinated by the Soviet Union. So all that he was talking about is building dams and so on. So all that is very important, but it cannot be that a country which has come through 600 years of brutal invasion by the Muslims and Muslim invaders, and then the looting of India, completely bleeding it of its resources for another 100 years, and leaving us completely poor. At that time, we needed to have a new mindset, which is what I've been repeatedly saying. I've been giving popularly in these public meetings the example that if you have 1,000 goats, my mindset is of a goat. Even if only one tiger comes, they'll all run away. And same thing with a lion, which has got a tremendous aggressive personality, but brought up as a pussycat in the circus, become like pussycats in the circus. They perform for the public as the ringmaster orders them to do. So, in this regard, therefore, India's mindset was that we were a poor country. The British saved us. They came, they put us together, and so on and so forth. This is the kind of rubbish that today we don't hear. But even I, as a young little boy of 7 years, I used to be fed this nonsense, especially if you went to a Christian missionary school, which I did. So, therefore, I have been emphasizing from day one that I'm not saying this country should become a Hindu state that some people want. No, that's never been in India. We have never allowed that to happen. But we do worship Bharat Mata and the cultural traditions of the country. And throughout the period, you found all the kings only focused on the cultural aspect. Even when we went abroad and conquered countries, like we conquered parts of China, Thailand, Southeast Asia, so on. We only did cultural work there. Indonesia, there's no report of brutality or takeover, massacre, looting, nothing. And Indians had all through the globe, and particularly in Southeast Asia and East Asia, had been sending armies and taking over, building temples, teaching them. We taught what is known as wushu, that is in China, and which is now translated, went from China to Japan, and the Chinese translation of wushu was karate. And of course, we are now in a situation where we think we're getting a Japanese karate. We are learning that. So the mindset needs to be changed, and that is only comes by Renaissance. So I'd like to start with the definition of what some key words in the title: Hindutva and Renaissance. What do they mean? And as far as the path is concerned, the Indian path is peaceful, argumentative, coming to a conclusion. And the Shankaracharya invented the concept of Shastrat, and he went from Kerala all the way to Kashmir. The country was that time predominantly a Buddhist country, and in a special school. And ultimately, he went everywhere. He had a debate, And in the debate, the condition was that the person he's debating, if he lost, he would become a Hindu, a Sanatana Dharmi, or Advaita to be more exact. And at the same time, if he lost, then he would convert to Buddhism. And he won all the way up there. And in fact, many of the people he defeated, very famous was Mandana Mishra in Bihar. He became the first Shingeri Shankaracharya. So we have throughout history tried to persuade people by arguments. And it's always only when arguments fail that we have resorted to force. Take in Mahabharat, Krishna went and made the ridiculous offer of 5 villages. He said, "You take Indraprastha. Let's not have a war for that, but just give 5 villages for the 5 Pandava women." So, but even that he didn't agree. Not only he didn't agree, Duryodhana had the audacity to try and arrest Krishna so that he will not participate in the war. And then Krishna, of course, took out his Sudarshan Chakra and walked out of the palace. So this is the tradition, and we are today. Sometimes we get this all cockeyed. And we are not. If suppose you are attacked by another country, and then you can't talk about Shastrat and say let's have a debate. If China attacks you and takes your land, you have to retaliate and not say. We're going to have talks, which we are like we are doing today. So I would say that when we say Hindutva, it is a philosophy, and that philosophy is based on Hindu values, which is too big a subject for me to say this. Maybe sometime later on I can do just on what is Hindu values. But you know broadly what Hindu values are. How you regard your father, how you regard your mother, how you regard your wife, how you regard your children, how you regard your sisters and brothers. All these are documented thing as part of our Shastras. So we have continuously followed that, and we have lost many of these. For instance, treatment of women. Women were not only equal in some areas where they had an advantage. They were the leaders, the running of the household, the bringing up of children. They were more capable of doing it because their husbands were going out on long journeys and so on. So therefore, if you see who's the head of education in our amongst our gods, it is Saraswati. It's a lady. And same thing with finance, and same thing even with war. When all the men failed, they had to go and beg Durga, and then ultimately Durga took the roop of Kali and finished off all the enemies. Now you don't have any other religion which talks about women in this kind of high place thing, that when all the men fail, they have to go to the women. So all these values have to be brought back. And so Hindu is, who is an Hindu? First of all, the Constitution defines Hindu as someone who believes in Sanatana Dharma. But more importantly, the Constitution also says that in Article 26 that a Hindu includes Buddhists, Jain, and Sikhs. So the word Hindu was those people of religion, which religions were born in India. We call them as Indic religions. And there are a lot of common things in them. So, I mean, we can't, we can live with each other because we are not different. The problem became with Christianity and Islam, because Islam and Christianity both said my way or the highway. So, and if you chose the highway, we will be killing you, or we'll ostracize you, or something. Both these religions are very specific. That is, there's only one religion that is our religion, and if you don't agree, then you will suffer consequences. We were not like that. We, in fact, let the Parsis come to our country. The only place they survived. They didn't survive in Iran. They survived in India. The Jews came here, and only after Israel was formed, they went back. So these ethos, the Hindu ethos, is what we call as Hindutva. So therefore, we will Hindutva includes settling differences by Shastrat, and only if the Shastras don't work, if the discussion doesn't work, then we go to war if the other side wants war. And we have never imposed our knowledge. You see, if you read the Gita, there's a mind-boggling shloka there, where Krishna says, "I have taught you everything I know. But how you're going to follow it is up to you. You decide whether you're going to accept what I've told you." I mean, God is saying, after revealing to him that he's God, he's telling Arjuna that I have taught you everything, all the secrets I've taught you. And I think it's chapter 18, shloka 63, where Krishna ends up by saying, but it is up to you, after I've taught you, to decide whether you want to follow it or not. I mean, this is the kind of democratic mentality we built. That's why our country has survived as a democracy. So I would say the Hindutva path is the path is, of course, non-violent. Hindutva path we must work for bringing this country. Unfortunately, we have not done it in the last 70 years, and even now it's all haphazard. It's not enough to liberate the temples. It's not enough to talk tough and so on. What we need is a mindset change, and that mindset change can come if the syllabus in the schools and colleges are changed to reflect the truth and not all that bogus junk that the British imposed on us. And this way we have to proceed. Now, Renaissance is another very interesting word. Most of the time we have been used to revolution. Revolution. So, but revolution has become to be associated with violence and imposing your views on others. Renaissance is a form of evolution, where you start finding for newer and better ways of doing things. So when the man started, he went around collecting fruits and vegetables and plants and so on. And then soon he began to see that he can collect some, and the others you can offer it. Whatever excess he has, he offers it, and he makes an exchange. So the idea of exchange came, and that brought about a big change in human society. And then after that, the question of war came. People began to go to war to acquire somebody else's property, and it went on. Each time there was a major change. Today we have globalization. Nobody could think of globalization. Christopher Columbus wanted to find India, and he went in the wrong direction and found America. And that kind of thing is no one need to do because our science has developed and so on. So we are now wanting a new order, and that new order must come peacefully. And that's how Renaissance word came. It originally came in Italy and in Florence, and then it spread to France. Any basic change of the people's thinking, behavior, discovery, this is called Renaissance. And Renaissance is what we are looking for. We have already been through several changes. As I told you, in the very beginning of humanity, we were loners. We all were running around ourselves. Then bilateralism came. Then currency came using gold and silver. Then paper currency came. and now cryptocurrency has come when everything is disposed of, even the government is disposed of. So this evolution is also a part of Renaissance, because they have changed by by a huge leveraging the position of the individual. So now, what is Renaissance in India today? Supposing somebody says, "What is Renaissance? Men and women are equal," and that's not. It's very superficial. Or saying that everybody must get educated. That's also, I mean, without an anchor. Renaissance, according to me, in the Hindu context, because this is what we have, which is what has been suppressed. All these thousand years, the Hindus have been suppressed. Nobody else has been suppressed like the Hindus have been suppressed, and therefore, a lot of things have got ossified, and so we have to now bring about a major change, a renaissance in Hinduism itself, in sense of what you know is Hinduism. Otherwise, Hinduism is Sanatana, and so therefore, nobody can even dare to think of changing it. What I'm saying is the Hindu practices have to be brought up, changes. So basically, this is, I think, the one person who, in the last, say, 100 years, who has given his attention to it. Even Savarkar didn't give it, even Aurobindo didn't give it. But one person who actually formalized it was Deen Dayal Upadhyay. And we have just completely forgotten him. He also didn't have any time. He was general secretary, then he became party president, all the time touring. Still in the railway bogie where he sat, he used to make notes and so on. Finally produced a pamphlet, and that pamphlet, you see, grew into a little booklet, and then Nanaji Deshmukh and Dattopant Tigri and all ensured that it was published, and then he was murdered. So it was not developed. I tried to develop it, give it a mathematical shape, and in fact, Mahesh Mehta held a conference on integral humanism, but it was never reached. After coming to power, we should have, made that as a compulsory subject. Integral humanism. We got Marxism. We teach Marxism. We teach the French, what the French said, what the Germans said. All this, even. Fascism we are teaching, to know what it was. But nobody is teaching integral humanism, even though 7 years we have been in office. So what Deen Dayal Upadhyay said is that the Hindu Renaissance, or the Hindustani Renaissance, is when there is a harmonization of the development of materialism with spiritual advancement. So therefore, you can't, just think of, like America. America just, life of pleasure. The pursuit of pleasure is their goal. And so material. But they don't seem to be happy. In fact, a large number of Americans come to all our sadhus' ashrams to find out how to become happy. And they have taken to yoga to stabilize their mind. So therefore, the education should have both in it: spiritual advancement with material prosperity. How to get how to become a physicist, how to become an economist, how to become an engineer. These are all part of your material pursuits of life. But at the same time, if it's just that, then that society will become exploitative. So materialism leads to exploitation unless it is brought in with spiritual advancement. Now, the Hindu system is that you just note what this Varna system. Varna system was never birth. Whose authority do you want? Read Gita. 3 different chapters. He says it is not got to do anything with birth. It is gunas which you acquire, and you develop. And if you're inclined to be a scholar and you're willing to give up, if you're Jnani and Tyagi and Sahasi, then he says you're a Brahmin. And it doesn't matter where you are born. So that's why Vishwamitra was born in a Kshatriya family. He became a Brahmin, and Vedavyasa's mother was a fisherwoman. He became he became a Brahmin. The same reason, because they took to Gyan, and then lived a very simple life. In fact, those days they went even to the extreme of going begging every week to get provisions and collect it. So Jnani, Tyagi, that is given up everything in life of pleasure, and Masasi, man, very absolutely not afraid of anybody. So that is a Brahmin. Then Kshatriya is the one who can wield the weapons, and so that was the Kshatriya. Vaishya, the one who did commerce, created wealth in the country, and Shudras were the ones who worked on agriculture, and even in parts of commerce where labor was involved. So that was the system. The scheduled caste thing came up as a very minor part of Hinduism, but after Buddhism and after Islam and so on, it has become bigger and bigger. And but if you look at the DNA tests of Indians, scheduled caste and Brahmin DNA is the same. There's no difference. So I mean, there's nothing special, especially like in America, the blacks, I segregated at once upon a time. But that's because they look different. But here they are the same people. And so these were allocations based on division of labor. That's what in economics we say, division of labor. And it had nothing to do with birth. You could be born in a Brahmin family and become a military man. You can be born in a Vaishya family and become a Shudra. All these are things to show that this was a system that had been worked out for division of power, not division of labor. So power means if you have knowledge, you have power. If you have weapons, you have power. If you have money, you have power. If you have land, you have power. So separate all of them, and nobody will have more than one of this. That is how we decentralize the society. So therefore, what Dindal Upadhyay spoke about is this harmonization of spiritual advancement with material progress. He said you need material progress. You got to eat. So, without that, you can't even do any spiritual work. So therefore, material progress and spiritual advancement, everybody must learn both and become self-sufficient. Now, spiritually and again materially, we democracy has been there all through. I mean, in the panchayats, we had at panchayat level, we had in block levels. It was called General Padas, and that's why you find in 1977 people will ask me many times, foreigners will ask me, we can't understand. Your most educated part of India voted for Indira Gandhi. That is South India. These 4 states of South India are more highly literate or educated than North India. And North India, is all peasantry and poor people and rural areas. And in North India, they wiped out Indira Gandhi completely. She lost her own seat. So did her son. So what is the explanation for that? That's because the English education has not spoiled their brain. And therefore, they thought like Hindus. And having thought like Hindus, they voted like Hindus, which is they decide to teach her a lesson. And even today, you can have caste voting, but if you bring a big issue, people will vote for you. They have done it in the past also, when they cut across and voted and defeated people who we thought could never be defeated. So, therefore, the issue of democracy is well built into India. And you see, people talk about India, it was not even one country. Then how are you still one country? Look at the Soviet Union. It broke into 16 countries. Yugoslavia broke into 4 countries. This Indonesia too had a break. Pakistan into 2. I hope, hopefully into 4 in the near future. The remaining Pakistan. But the fact is that India could not be broken, even though the predictions were that India would break. Why? Because we are emotionally one country, and every part of India has some spiritual factor, and sometimes people go to Varanasi to have a bath all the way from Tamil Nadu. So sometimes people go to Rameshwaram. So therefore, this concept that democracy is something which the British gave you. How did the British give it to us? They never practiced democracy when they were here, and they were quite brutal in the way they treated people who stood for independence. They never listened. Gandhi was different. Gandhi was someone who was saying that I will not use any method to get rid of you. He would say, no, I will only petition, go, you send me to jail, I'll still come petition. And Gandhi ultimately won only to the extent that the Subhash Chandra Bose atmosphere was such that the INA had started infecting the British and Indian army. And the British always knew the day the army goes against us, we have no place here. We have to leave. And they have written in their books, so many books, that British will go the day the British Indian army revolts against us. So I'm not on that. I'm only saying that this democracy is intrinsic to India, and we need to nurture it. There are some idiots like Mrs. Gandhi was in the emergency, and there will be more idiots to come, but the country has to prepare to see that we don't put up with dictatorship, we don't put up with suppression. People sometimes tell me, why you are not disciplined? I said, why should I discipline? For policy also I'll be disciplined. I can be disciplined in sense that, I won't say that somebody is having a love affair with some woman who is a party member and so on, or that he's not treating his wife very well, or he's beating his children. Those things I will not make public. I will try to say it in the party. But if there is an economic policy which is wrong, I will speak up. So the culture of democracy has to be promoted, and that is part of our material prosperity, because India's democracy is the only country which has produced real, genuine growth. You think that the Chinese have produced growth? Just wait another 5-6 years, you'll see that China will be collapsed. They will probably come to India singing help, I think. So that system of ruling from the top never will work. So democracy and market economy. This is also typically Indian. So in this way, we have been growing materially and producing prosperity. The Dave Narasimha Rao went more towards market economy. What growth rates we got? Otherwise, Jawaharlal Nehru got 3.5% growth rate, and we never had it after that. After Narasimha Rao came till last year, and that is before Corona, 2019, when you got a 3% growth rate in the fourth quarter, and the third quarter, of 2019, when there was no Corona at all, no talk of Corona, nobody knew it existed. So, but our capacity to grow in the moment you go in for a democratic system of economy is like that. So the same thing with market economy. Market economy is more suitable for the Hindutva way of thinking. So I won't go too much into material. I'll come to the spirituality aspect. And that is that today we need to imbibe that spiritual approach, and the approach has to be on the basis that you persuade people, you argue people. People are afraid to speak about in favor of Hinduism. Oh, no, I'm not a fanatic, but I feel like this. Why you need to say all that? Of course, there are people who will try to persecute you. You know what happened recently. I won a case in Gaudiya High Court where they put a case against me because I said masjids can be demolished because it was only to read namaz. And that's there in the Supreme Court judgments of 1994. And yet somebody put a case against me. Of course, I know who conspired to put it in. It doesn't matter. He's dead and gone. But ultimately, I had to fight a case and win the case. So in our country, people use all this methods. But I would say that spiritually, we should be proud to be Hindus and accept where we have got ossified, fossilized, and try to rectify it. And the first thing we must rectify is this division that I'm north, I'm south, I'm east, I'm west, because all your DNA is the same, and that I'm a Brahmin. Oh, what do you mean? You can only be a Brahmin if you're Jnani and Tyagi and Sasi. Otherwise, you can't be a Brahmin. Who says that Brahmin is born? Give me one place where it says. It is very clear in Gita. It's not born. It's gunas. So you acquire those gunas, you'll be a Brahmin. It doesn't matter. Ambedkar can be called Brahmin. Yes, if supposing somebody said, by your definition, Ambedkar is a Brahmin. I said, of course he is a Brahmin. Jawaharlal Nehru is not a Brahmin. Of course he is not a Brahmin. So because he doesn't have any of the gunas of the Brahmin. So these are things that have to be brought out. You can't have a renaissance if you don't think in new ways. And the new way is that we are Hindus, and those others who are here, they are also ancestors who are Hindus. I can prove it by DNA. So, all right, doesn't matter, we keep them first, let's improve ourselves. So, the Hindus must now get a Hindu consciousness. And that consciousness would be that we were great and we will become great again. And what made us great, we'll find out and we'll practice it. So, that is how we have to go. And how do we go about it? And I'll conclude it because I'm running out of time. And so there was some discussion. That is why we found VHS. Why did we form VHS? Because not to do demonstrations. We haven't done a single demonstration. And all the people who come with their own money. There's no money collecting for this. So why? Because we want those gunas to be imbibed. So we have made 5 things which are necessary. First of all, you must know your identity. Your identity is that of a Hindu because your DNA says so, and this DNA is not there anywhere else in the world. 2, you must learn Sanskrit. 3, you must practice, your economy should be on based on integral humanism, Ram Rajya, we have put on these 4 or 5 conditions. And learn that, then you're on the path. So the path is not, jump to some esoteric concept of our Renaissance, but the path is that the Renaissance comes step by step. So I would say today, in fact, this is the work the government should have done. The education ministry should have changed the text and so on and so forth. There are a lot of good people who could have done it. If they had made Rajiv Malhotra, for example, chairman of the textbook committee, he would produce first-class textbooks for the children, school children, college boys, and so on. Of course, he writes lots of books for research and esoteric research, but the fact is that he's also can speak on at a very simple level also. So because he knows the subject. So like that, there are many people, you collect them. Now, instead of that, all bureaucrats, IAS, IFS, and the education minister himself is not sufficiently educated to overcome them. So therefore, I would say that what we need now is an agenda to go. The path is the agenda. and it takes you towards Renaissance. Renaissance means you are new Hindu, you are a Hindu, Virat Hindu, you are a Hindu who has multiple qualities. That is what the aim was. And I think this is a matter that needs to be researched and further work done. But today I thought I'll give you an introductory talk and then go in for further details on specific subjects and deal with them. Okay, then, my colleagues, if they have any questions.
Dr. Sawmy, can you just briefly say what you said in English and Hindi also for the benefit of the viewers? So about 5 minutes. Briefly.
All right. मैं हिंदुत्व के जो पथ है, हिंदुत्व देश में लाने के लिए जिस रास्ते से जाना है और उससे एक पुनरुत्थान देश में पैदा करना है, वो कैसा किया जा सकता है, क्योंकि हमारे पुनरुत्थान की बहुत अनिवार्य हो गया है। क्योंकि पहले 600 साल अंग्रेज़ों ने यहाँ मारपीट और हत्या ये वो सब करके लूटा, सब करके दबाया, ज़बरदस्ती हम लोगों को धर्म परिवर्तन करवाया। तो ये एक 600 साल इसमें गई। वो लड़े, ये नहीं कि हमारे लोग नहीं लड़े, परंतु जिस परिस्थिति थी उसमें जहाँ हम अकेला पड़ गए उसमें हमें नुकसान उठाना पड़ा। और दूसरा है, ये अंग्रेज़ आए, इन्होंने पहला हमारे दिमाग पर बदल लाने के लिए उन्होंने संस्कृत को ख़त्म कर दिया। कहा कि संस्कृत को कहीं नहीं पढ़ाया जाएगा, जो लाइब्रेरी बुक्स हैं जहाँ संस्कृत के बुक्स हैं उसको जला दो। एंड इससे उन्होंने अंग्रेज़ी लाए। अंग्रेज़ी आने के बाद अंग्रेज़ी की जो संस्कृति है, जो उनके फोर्क नाइफ में खाने की वो परंपरा, ये सारी चीज़ें उन्होंने हमें जैसे कहा था अंग्रेज़ों ने कि वी वांट टू क्रिएट ए इंडियन who dresses like an Englishman, who speaks like an Englishman। इस प्रकार से एक अंग्रेज़, बट सिर्फ उसकी चमड़े में अंग्रेज़ नहीं होगा, बट उसकी रंग में नहीं होगा, परंतु बाकी सारे जो संस्कार हैं वो अंग्रेज़ के होंगे। ये उनकी उन्होंने लगाए, उनकी सारे एजुकेशन सिस्टम झूठ बोल दिया, हम आर्यन थे, द्रविडियन थे, सब बकवास ये सारे भर करके इन्होंने ये किया। तो ये दोनों जो हमारे देश में ब्रेन वॉशिंग हुई, जिसको यानी जिस प्रकार से हमारी मस्तिष्क हमारी जो सोच विचार है उसको उन्होंने विकृति लाई उसमें, तो वो उसके जगह में अब एक देश में एक पुनरुत्थान होना चाहिए। और उस पुनरुत्थान में कि हम वास्तव में क्या थे और क्या हो सकते थे, क्यों हम दूसरे लोग हमारे ऊपर राज कर सके, और अब हमें आगे बढ़ने के लिए किस प्रकार से जो एक विराट यानी प्रतिमा है उसको हम बना सकते हैं। ये इस पर हमने आज चर्चा की थी। तो मैंने कहा कि कई चीज़ें तो हमारे पास है, जैसे हमारी आर्थिक विकास कैसे होनी चाहिए, उसमें हिंदुत्व में ये है कि भौतिक विकास पर्याप्त नहीं है, और भौतिक विकास से समाज में आपकी कोई प्रतिष्ठा बनने वाली नहीं है। सिर्फ भौतिक विकास से अमेरिका में बनती है, यूरोप में बनती है, कई जगहों में बनती है, बट हिंदुस्तान में इतिहास है कि जो गरीब जैसा आदमी है, परंतु वो उसकी जो उसकी एक भगवान की जो देन है, उस देन को अपनी जबान से लोगों को बताते हैं, वो ज़्यादा ऊपर होता है। गांधी जी तो सिर्फ एक लंगोटी पहन के घूमते थे और उनको सब महात्मा मानते थे। ये कभी किसी और देश में आपको ऐसा नहीं मिलेगा कि उनके नेता आधा नंगा आ रहे हैं और लोग कह रहे हैं अरे आ गया देवता आ गया, सब उसकी पूजा करते हैं। ये हमारी जो इस संस्कृति है उसमें उसके अंतर्गत हमें बनानी है। तो लोकतंत्र जो है वो तो हमारी संस्कृति में है, इसीलिए आज भी बचा हुआ है, दूसरे देशों में से उड़ गया है, परंतु हमारे देश में उड़ा नहीं। जिसने उड़ाने की कोशिश किया उसको उड़ा दिया हमने, इंदिरा गांधी को इमरजेंसी काल में। तो मैं ये एक बात कहता हूँ कि जो हमारी रक्त में है उसको जगाना है, और उस जगाने के लिए एक पुनरुत्थान की योजना बनानी चाहिए। तो मैंने कहा कि विराट हिंदुस्तान संगम में हमने 5 पॉइंट्स तय किए हैं जिससे ये चेतना जगा जा सकती है, उसको फिर आगे ले जाना पड़ेगा, और उसमें वैसे ही हम इसको करना है। ये आवश्यक है, हमें सिर्फ आर्थिक विकास कर दिया, हमने ये कर दिया, हमने वो कर दिया, ये पर्याप्त नहीं है। ये तो आ जाएगा अपने आप। हमारी एक मंशा होनी चाहिए, और वो मंशा जो है वो विराट मंशा, उस मंशा को हम अपने स्कूलों कॉलेजेस से, अपने परिवार में, घर के अंदर, हमारे व्यवहार से, इससे लोगों को लगना पड़ेगा कि हाँ, ये लोग मिटने वाले नहीं हैं, दबने वाले नहीं हैं, और हर समस्या का वो समाधान ढूंढ सकते हैं। वो भले जैसे कृष्ण भगवान ने पहले कहा कि 5 गांव दे दो, उसके बाद महाभारत कर दी, वैसे इनको शांति से व्यवहार करोगे तो सब अच्छा होगा, नहीं तो वो फिर आपको मिटाने में लग जाएंगे। इस प्रकार के एक चरित्र, एक आपकी इमेज जिसको अंग्रेजी में कहते हैं, उसको बनाने की आवश्यकता है। उसमें मैंने अपनी रूपरेखा रखी है। मैंने कहा ये तो आज एक ही लेक्चर है, आगे भी मैं अब एक विषय को लेकर थोड़ा गहरा में आपको इसको संबोधित करूँगा।
Thank you, Dr. Sawmy. So, a lot of people have asked some questions. One of them, you touched upon this topic of the education system, that we need somebody like Rajiv Malhotra to do.
You cut off.
Yeah. So, sorry, even after so many years, we still, the CBSE books that we are seeing today has so many things that are anti-Hindu, more of an leave on Hindutva. So this, I think the foundation has to be laid, as you said, otherwise the future is not so great. So what can be done to make this government at least realize, Dr. Sawmy? So that's the first question. A lot of the viewers are asking this. The second one that some of them have raised is Hindutva, even though you have described it so beautifully that it's non-violent, it's based on arguments, it's based on facts, the painting that's being done of Hindutva is being made it radical. So how do we counter that? So those are the two questions that I have. The first one on the education, how do we, is there any way we can make this government wake up and change the system? Because it's not going anywhere. And the second one is perception of Hindutva and being painted as radical. How do we avoid it?
Well, it's very unfortunate that the person who has the power to do it has himself a very weak foundation in education. And so it's something that to say how we can do it, well, you'll have to have people in authority who understand what education is, what it means. It's not just getting a certificate and flaunting it. It's a love. It's your Saraswati Ma. The way you worship her, you worship your education too. And to further it, you hold those who are educated in high regard. That's not so today. In fact, the moment you are highly educated, people become nervous and insecure, and so on. So the whole mentality is still what was there during the British period. It hasn't changed very much. So to ask me this question, I would say, well, wait some more years, because the trend is much better. I know that, although I must tell you that when I was young boy, man, my father, my father's uncle was Satyamurthy. So, I mean, we were literally flooded with congressmen in our houses. And because my father was in government service, he had a nice house, so people used to come. Sometimes Kamraj used to come and stay with us and so on. Nityanand Kanungo from Bihar used to come. I mean, from Orissa used to come. So, but at that time, again, the problem was that we had Jawaharlal Nehru, and he was far more interested in foreign policy. All right, you may be interested, but then delegate. The lack of delegation in our system is what is why we are not able to do it. So, what I would say, keep this alive, this demand, develop it, write your articles, write your books, and so on. But at the moment today, if you ask me, I can't do it even in economics. You see, in economics today, everything that's being done is wrong, and most of the announcements are all bogus. For instance, $5 trillion in 5 years. That means doubling. It means 14.8% year growth rate. I mean, who are they kidding? So, at the moment, I think more important for me is to more and more win over people like we have done in the last 5-6 years with our VHS. And then when we can reach a critical mass, automatically everything will happen.
And about
Can't hear.
perception of Hindutva, the perception of Hindutva being more radical, because what you explained beautifully, being it's, yeah. So instead of
that is deliberate. You see, Harvard University, where I taught for 50 years, off and on. I mean, I'm not continuously, and 10 years, did so much teaching that even the Nobel laureates who have won, who are my students now, are recognizing it publicly. When I went to China to address a conference, the guy who got the Nobel Prize for systems analysis from the University of Chicago had come, and the first thing he said is, "I am so pleased that my teacher is also here with me." Of course, in a different robe, that of a politician. So I think you are concerned about this. There is a feeling of fear that these people have. This formula that they have of uniting Hindus, it means that we have no place, or we have to be the same. And if you are same, then our patrons abroad, they are going to turn against us, like they turn against me. You see, they were not my patrons, but they were my colleagues. But they turned. They were not in my department of economics, but they were in other parts of Harvard, and they turned against me because I was not willing to go along with them when it come to India, not in my classrooms or in America. So I would say, ignore it. Let them scream away. It doesn't matter. The Hindus are in India more than 1 billion now. So these billion people, you awaken them, automatically everything will fall in place.
Will Hindutva still have an impact in the upcoming UP elections, Dr. Sawmy? Does it?
Which one? Hindutva?
Yeah.
Well, it is the only thing that we have. It's the only thing we have, and but the question is that after the Uttarakhand temple takeover, and a lot of things that the sadhus and sannyasis know about how people try to stop the Supreme Court from giving the judgment in favor of building the Ram temple, and who are the people who did it. So I think there is, except for Yogi, there is no other personality who could be called as a person who has promoted Hinduism in Uttar Pradesh. And even in Kashmir, we have not. We have talked about in the beginning when we passed these laws. We talked about doing what they for the sake of those poor Hindus who were driven out. But after that, we haven't done anything. I mean, it's almost a dead letter. So I think the full value of Hindutva will not be able to realize. We may still win because the others are not up to it. Because
even after the Exodus, Dr. Sawmy, I mean, I've been reading.
no, Exodus, because the Exodus has gone to a place. Somebody is trying to intervene.
No. Go ahead.
The thing is, that the Exodus has gone to a camp which has some advantages, like strong caste groups which are willing to support, but they also a feeling generating a fear that these people in the past have been encouraging gundas, and law and order has certainly vastly improved under Adityanath. So I think it's plus and minus. It's not just simply a plus for the opposition.
Thank you, Dr. Sawmy.
Dr. Swami, many of
Yeah.
our viewers are in a dilemma. They say whether by getting political power can we have our agenda in place, because they feel in 7 years sufficient has not happened or the right direction has not been taken. So what is your advice? Because a lot of people, for example, a lot of people tweeting, lot of people who stood by Hindutva even pre-2014, they feel very unhappy that the agenda has not gone forward. So many people wonder whether political power leads to all this happening, or is there any other method by which we can have our agenda on Hindutva taken forward? Because the questions which are there in the chat box all indirectly, directly are focused on this. So they want to have some clarity on this.
Well, the question is, I don't think that, first of all, I'll give you answer the basic question. You need political power for speedy alteration of the system. And it can be done if you have done it with finesse, and people will also welcome it. There will be some people who have vested interest, they'll oppose, but it doesn't matter. But if you use the political power properly, yes. But the problem is when you come to power, and I've seen this firsthand both in time of Chandrasekhar and Narasimha Rao, there are always considerations which, to the credit of both Chandrasekhar and Narasimha Rao, they didn't yield. But I have seen in cases of others, I won't name them, they came to power and they were terrified of what some foreign country would do. I would give an example. What was the necessity for Mr. Modi to go and embrace the Pope and invite him to India? Well, I mean, does he not know what the Christians are doing, missionaries coming from abroad are doing in India? And the propaganda that is going on is that we are butchering Christians. So he's going to come here and he's not going to speak on it. Pope last time when Vajpayee called him, and I don't know why the BJP seems to have a fascination, my party seems to have a fascination of having the Pope come. Last time the Pope came here, what did he say? It was on Diwali time. He said all the little lamps you're lighting is not going to bring you light. You have to go by Jesus, only then you will be able to see the light. This he said openly in public. You can see the newspapers of that time. I think I've included this in one of my books also. So I think the issue is not political power. Political power is a great thing, great instrument for bringing about fast change. But it should be people who are not easily frightened. There should be people who have nothing to, or people who don't have anything to hide or be pressured on. that kind of people have to be selected, and it takes maybe it'll take time, but it can happen. But till then, you don't have to despair. I mean, keep it alive, keep the whole movement alive. Some people have asked me questions in this show on Kashmiri Pandits. Very tragic thing. We should have been brutal on getting them back. I mean, I can't believe that if supposing we had done the same thing to Muslims, the whole world would have been asking us, take them back, take them back. We have done more for Tamils in Sri Lanka than we have done for Kashmiri Pandits in India.
Arvind, you have another question before we wind up?
Arvind ji, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
Dr.
Arvind.
Sawmy, I was waiting for my turn, and turn has come late. I have too many questions.
You are a Pandit ji, so you can summarize everything.
या मेरे पास जितने प्रश्न हैं हिंदुत्व को लेकर और जो भी आपने कहा है, मुझे पूर्ण विश्वास है कि वो मेरे सारे प्रश्न और आपके उत्तर हमारे दर्शकों की सारी समस्याओं का, जिज्ञासाओं का समाधान करेंगे। मेरा सबसे मूल प्रश्न ये है, पिछले कम से कम 40 वर्षों से हम देखते आ रहे हैं कि एक राजनीतिक दल जिसकी शक्ति निरंतर 40 वर्षों में बढ़ती रही, उसने हिंदुत्व का सहारा लिया और पूरी शेष राजनीतिक शक्तियों ने ये प्रोजेक्ट किया कि अगर वो हिंदुत्ववादी है तो इसका मतलब वो सेक्युलरिज्म यानी कि धर्मनिरपेक्षता के विरोधी हैं। तो मेरा मूल प्रश्न इसको लेकर है कि भारत में हिंदुत्व और धर्मनिरपेक्षता क्या एक दूसरे के पूरक हैं या एक दूसरे के विरोधी हैं? हमारे संविधान के प्रियम्बल में सेक्युलर शब्द आया है, जोड़ा गया है, जरूर वो 40 वर्षों से पहले जोड़ा गया है, लेकिन क्या हम उस शब्द की मर्यादा का पालन कर पा रहे हैं? जगदीश शेट्टी जी ने एक प्रश्न पूछा था, वो मैं प्रश्न थोड़ा और विस्तार से बढ़ाना चाहता हूं। सिर्फ 7 साल का प्रश्न नहीं है, प्रश्न ये है कि जहां जहां भी हिंदुत्ववादी शक्तियां जो हिंदुत्व का नारा देकर सत्ता में आई, क्या उन्होंने हिंदुत्व के धर्म का और अपनी जो उनके वादे थे उनका पालन किया? सिर्फ 7 वर्षों की बात नहीं है, मैं और पिछले 5 वर्षों और उसके पहले भी जानना चाहता हूं। तो मैं ये कहना चाहता हूं डॉक्टर स्वामी, और आप इसका जरूर समाधान करेंगे, कि विपक्ष में रह के हिंदुत्व की परिभाषा एक होती है, सत्ता में आते ही हिंदुत्व का चरित्र बदल जाता है। और जब रमेश स्वामी जी ने और जगदीश शेट्टी जी ने दोनों ने ये प्रश्न किया, तो मैं उन दोनों के प्रश्न को दोनों को इकट्ठा करके फिर मैं आपसे पूछ रहा हूं, क्या सत्तावादी हिंदुत्व की परिभाषा अलग है और विपक्ष के हिंदुत्व की परिभाषा अलग है? क्या हिंदुत्व और धर्मनिरपेक्षता साथ साथ रह सकते हैं?
देखिए, सत्ता के बिना जिस रूपरेखा में और जिस तीव्र गति से हमें हिंदुत्व को जमाना है या उसकी चेतना जगानी है, सत्ता के बिना नहीं हो सकता। और मैं समझता हूँ कि अनेक कारण हैं कि अभी सत्ता में आने के बाद क्यों हमारे लोग बदल गए। ये वाजपेयी के साथ भी हुआ था। एक तो वो इस जो प्रोपेगेंडा होती है उससे डर जाते हैं। मैं अपना उदाहरण देना पसंद नहीं करूँगा, परंतु बता देता हूँ। मुझे जब मैंने ये कहा कि मस्जिद को तोड़ा जा सकता है यदि अधिकृत रूप से और प्रशासन करती है, और हर देशों में होता है, और इसको लेकर मेरे ऊपर केस डाला जब एक सुप्रीम कोर्ट और मुझे हार्वर्ड के जो मैं लेक्चर देता था उसको बंद कर दिया। उस समय उन्होंने कहा कि तुम इस बयान को वापस नहीं लोगे तो हम आपको पढ़ाने नहीं देंगे यहाँ। मैंने कहा मैं तो तुम्हारे भला के लिए आ रहा हूँ पढ़ाने के लिए, मैं अपने के लिए क्या, मुझे तो राजनीति से टाइम निकाल के आना पड़ता है, जो करना करो। और आज उनकी नाक कट गई है जब कोर्ट ने उस केस जो डाली हुई थी जिसको उदाहरण बना रहे थे, उसमें ऐसी बुरी तरह हाई कोर्ट ने उसको रद्द की। तो मैं कहता हूँ कि ये एक हीन भावना है हमारे नेताओं में। कई में हैं जो दूसरों कारण के वो दब के करते, जैसे नरसिम्हा राव थे, उन्होंने बहुत कुछ किया, इजराइल को उन्होंने मान्यता दे दी, हम लोगों की हिम्मत नहीं हुई। जब वाजपेयी फॉरेन मिनिस्टर थे, वो तो चरण सिंह और मोरारजी देसाई दोनों चाहते थे कि इजराइल का रिकग्निशन होना चाहिए, उन्होंने डट के विरोध किया कि वो कहीं सोशलिस्ट नाराज हो जाएंगे, कहीं कम्युनिस्ट नाराज हो जाएंगे, ये सब। तो एक आप पावर में आने के बाद सिर्फ अपनी लोकप्रियता और अपनी प्रचार और अपनी मान्यता विदेशों में, ये नहीं सोचना चाहिए। मैं आया हूँ इससे, मेरा एक धर्म है कि ये जो मैंने वचन दिया है चुनाव में, उसको मैं अमल करने के लिए हूँ। उसमें मिट जाऊंगा तो मिट जाऊंगा, परंतु मुझे करना है। ये मंशा एक तैयार की जानी पड़ती है, परंतु मुझे पावर में आया, सदा के लिए पावर में आना है, ये डर है मुझे ही। आप देखिए ट्विटर में कितने लोग कहते हैं कि तुम जिस तरीके से बोलते हो तुम्हें राज्यसभा नहीं देंगे, जैसे राज्यसभा कोई बड़ी चीज़ है। मैं तो 6 बार पार्लियामेंट आ चुका हूँ, मुझे एक राज्यसभा के लिए मैं भूल जाऊंगा? कैसे लोग हैं, पता नहीं क्या कौन सा मंशा है, और यही हीन भावना पैदा करती है। घर में भी माँ बाप बच्चों को इसी प्रकार की भाषा में समझाने की कोशिश करते हैं। तो मैं समझता हूँ कि जो है अब वास्तविकता में इसमें सत्ता से इसको मत जोड़िए, सत्ता से इसको मत जोड़िए। मैं ये कहूँगा कि सत्ता में ऐसे लोगों को बैठाना चाहिए जिनमें हीन भावना नहीं है, और जब वो हीन भावना दिखाते हैं उसी समय उनको या चेतावनी देनी चाहिए या वो गद्दी से उतार देना चाहिए। और हमारे पास ऐसे शक्ति एक व्यक्ति के पास, ये अच्छी बात है बीजेपी की कि ये एक व्यक्ति का पार्टी नहीं है, जैसे अनेक अन्य पार्टीज हैं। तो यदि जो लोग कर सकते हैं उनको कहना चाहिए कि ये जो हमारी एजेंडा है इसको क्रियान्वित करो, वरना तुम अगले बार प्रधानमंत्री नहीं बन सकते हो या मंत्री नहीं बन सकते हो।
Dr. Swamy, I have one very another fundamental question. You mentioned about the Varna system and the
Yes.
caste system.
Yes.
We have a very large community within the Hindu religion called scheduled caste in government language.
Yes.
Mahatma Gandhi called them Harijans.
Yeah.
In now official, unofficial political language, they are called Dalits.
Yes.
Dalit, if you translate in English, it is oppressed.
Yes.
So we have acknowledgedly 20% people who are oppressed at the hand of remaining 80% Hindus. Now, can we survive in a society where we have a recognized oppressed component or a section of the people, and lot of government schemes for last 60 years, if not more, or maybe 70 years, are addressed to this particular section, and we are unable to do anything? Can we do something in Hinduism or Hindutva, call it whatever you like, to remove this caste barrier and banish this section called, the name called Dalit, not the section, name called Dalit, so that everybody is equal? People say Sanskrit is only for Brahmins. Why should Sanskrit be for Brahmins?
No, it's not for Brahmins.
Yeah, so no, there was a question even in your Tamil Nadu that whether Dalits can become pujaris. Why not?
See,
They are the Hindus.
Tamils is the fault is ours in North India, not the Tamil. I was there when Chandrasekhar was there. You know that you were also part of my team. I went and sat there and dismissed the government. People said rivers of blood will flow because he had 2/3 majority in the assembly. I said the real Tamil will stand up. All these others will run away. And exactly what happened. Not even a cycle was burnt. And we held elections in which out of 234 seats, Mr. Karunanidhi's party got only 2 seats. So I think the main problem is whether even in the Dalit movement, my personal experience is overwhelming majority of Dalits would like to see their assimilation take place. And that can partly begin by openly saying what Lord Krishna says, it is not got to do with your birth. Whatever your varna is, avarna is, it is not got to do with your birth. And if you qualify on the qualifications of a varna, you become that in that varna. That is what needs to be done. Now, so many people are very proudly Brahmins, but they are, running a shoe factory or something like that. I think this caste, this varna, the caste is different. That is for bloodlines and so on. That's good for marriages. One has to be careful not to marry in a certain. Whereas the brothers and sisters marry, their children will be all Mongoloids. That's what happened with the pharaohs. So, caste, the varna system is out of date. And the more you emphasize your Hinduness, in Hindus also there are so many, Sanatana Dharmis and Shaivites and Vaishnavites and, Smarthas and so on. But the Hindu identity has to be projected. And that has to be done. The state has not done it. And we continue, this quota, that quota. We are only sort of strengthening that.
And all these quotas are based on caste. We have a word scheduled caste. That means there is a schedule which has caste, not varnas.
So basically they have to be given a helping hand to compete with the rest of the society, but they need not be glorified as a group by a name. You can say that these are people, underprivileged people, and their parents were in this low occupation, and their grandparents were in this low occupation. To lift them up, we will see that they get the best education, and the state pays for it, and then you will see that they themselves will stand up. Dr. Ambedkar was given no reservation. He in 1916 went to Columbia and got a PhD in economics. And then he went to London School and got a DSc in economics. Then he became a lawyer, Bharat law. And he came back to India and wrote the constitution in the sense of, ensuring that it was amended or the amendments were taken, and the whole process was continued. Every amendment he gave a speech. You have to read the Constituent Assembly to see what a genius this man was. And Mr. Nehru ensured that he lost every Lok Sabha election by stealing all his booth agents. There are I think 3 Lok Sabha Lok Sabha elections he fought. He lost a deposit in all of them. And ultimately, in utter disgust, he went and became a Buddhist. Otherwise, a man who's written so much about Hinduism, you have to read. Even in 1916, he wrote. I've quoted that in my book in Hindutva and National Renaissance book. I've quoted. So this is what we have to do.
Yeah, Dr. Sawmy, when we talk of Renaissance.
Yes.
Renaissance in Hindu religion. In fact, I have translated your English book in Hindi Renaissance. When we talk of Renaissance today in 2022, do we include in our agenda to eliminate the caste system in order to get the renaissance in Hindu system?
You see, the Varna system cannot be got rid of by giving a fatwa. It's not possible. You have to practice it. If you don't inquire from anybody what your Varna is, that's the first start. Some of the moment you come, you can guess and all that, but the fact is that you should never ask somebody what's your Varna. That's the starting point. We are all equal. And the DNA proves that we are all equal.
I'll say it is very unfortunate that those people who had championed the cause of Hindutva had never raised this issue of the caste. It was only Ram Manohar Lohia in the 60s who started a movement of Jati Todo, and unfortunately he was a socialist. And the further generations of the socialists also did not live up to his expectations and continue that jihad against the caste. And therefore, I think it should be a part of a major part of our renaissance in Hindu religion.
No, we have been saying that. We have been saying it. Krishna is saying that Varna is not Janam se nahi hai. It's karam.
Just last question. In fact, there were so many questions. I have to, be short. In your book, you have written several books related to this topic. In your book on Hindus,
one more is coming.
Yeah, Hindus under siege that you had written. In that book, you had also mentioned that being a Hindutva, being a Hindutva follower, or being a true Hindu, that means you are likely to be victimized. Victimized by whom? Victimized by so-called people who are in power and they claim to be secular people. Discrimination of Hindus under the power of any color, any hue, any political ideology. This is called the secularism. True secularism means you suppress, oppress, punish those who call them Hindus. Now, will this continue for how long?
No, it can't continue because it's much less than it was before. Before people, I remember all conversations, fellows say, I am a very devout Hindu, but I am not communal. I remember in my college, the conversation, even my early days when I was teaching at IIT, people just tell me, I am also good, very Pakka Hindu, but I am not communal. I am not, I believe that it is my personal thing. Hey, the Hindu religion is not only personal, it's a society. The whole Hindutva idea is society, you see. So that inferiority complex has gone. So I wouldn't say that things have not improved. They have. And also all people have previous people used to be afraid to elect a Hindutva party. Now they have given you absolute majority. Whether you have misused it or not, that's another matter. But the fact is that people are willing to do that. And I think that's an irreversible trend. And what you have to do now is to get some gutsy leader who's not afraid of foreigners, willing to take a stand and do it. If you want to show you have guts, just frame the rules for Kashmir. Article 370 removed. You frame the rules, and finalize it. Even for that CAA, we have not framed the rules. And many of the people who are here for their citizenship have gone back to Pakistan because we have cancelled their Indian visa. They were given an emergency visa when they came, escaped from Pakistan, came to India, and we have cancelled that. So I think there's a tremendous fear of what the Americans will do and what the Russians will do, that sort of thing. And even the Chinese, otherwise you wouldn't say koi aaya nahi, koi gaya nahi.
Yeah, I mean, there are many questions. Ramesh or Jagdish, if you have any question to ask.
Now we can conclude.
I have one small little question. Not question actually, just you remember when Ashok Shingal ji was alive?
Yes.
In one of the meetings in the Arundhati Vasisht Anusandhan Peeth,
yes,
there were several vice chancellors also of different universities.
Yes.
It was decided then at that time that those people who are in the places of power in the education system
Yes.
to establish a chair in the name of Deen Dayal Upadhyay ji in the universities. And this was, I remember, this was, I think, 2013 or some such thing. And we are in 2022. Ashok Singhal ji is no more, unfortunately. But the people who claim their legacy have not done anything for integral humanism.
I know that. Agree. It's a matter of fact. And no point in complaining, waiting for a better opportunity to set it right. I have propagated throughout. In fact, there was a volume produced by an American university on Hindu economics.
Right.
And I wrote a chapter in it.
You were the speaker there, I remember, in that conference.
Yeah, that's right.
2011.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So
3rd May 2011.
yeah, and I had started influencing people to the point where the left-wing liberals in Harvard thought I was become dangerous, and I shouldn't have the label of Harvard. So that's how they discontinued. They couldn't do more than discontinuing my course, which of course, it didn't matter to me. But the fact is that they immediately react, whereas the Hindus don't unite. Even today, if a Hindu is targeted because you're Hindu, how many people will stand up in a university? Tell me. Even